Well, there is a whole plethora of issues going on today with the Snyder Bros and, well, Variety. I guess Variety really pissed them off, but look, we have to get down to it, okay? Ben Affleck spoke with GQ and Variety, kind of took some pieces of that article and ran with it, and it really got some people up in a tizzy. I then posted something really simple on X and said, hey, Affleck is spot on about his segment of this article that they put out, and then people got mad at me. We're not going to focus on that, though. I want to focus on the Ben Affleck standpoint, or statements, I should say, because that is the area that I think is most important. That is the area that I think people, to a certain point, some have taken out of context, and some are really chomping down on and really fighting tooth and nail to be like, no, this is what he means. This is what's going on. All right, so let's kind of jump into it here, all right, because this is what came out from Variety today. Now, this is on X, all right? This is specifically on X. It says, Ben Affleck says, playing Batman was a really excruciating experience. I am not interested in going down that particular genre. Again, speaking of comic book movies, superhero movies. Not because of that bad experience, but just I've lost interest in what was of interest about it to me. But I certainly wouldn't want to replicate an experience like that. A lot of it was misalignment of agendas, understandings, expectations. That's what he told GQ magazine. And also, by the way, I wasn't bringing anything particularly wonderful to that equation at the time either. I had my own failings, significant failings, in that process and at that time. In terms of why I had a bad experience, part of it is that what I was bringing to work every day was a lot of unhappiness. So I wasn't bringing a lot of positive energy to the equation. I didn't cause problems, but I came in and I did my job and I went home. But you've got to do a little bit better than that. All right. Now, for those of you who don't understand, I kind of want to break this down a little bit for you because you may not know all the details of what he's talking about here. Now, back in 2016, 2017, when those things were going on with Zack Snyder's Justice League, Zack Snyder and Justice League and everything, Ben Affleck was going through a difficult time. He and his then wife, Jennifer Garner, were going through difficult times. They were going through a divorce. Ben Affleck then went through some tough times and struggled with alcoholism. Again, he's talked about this. He is an alcoholic. He's gone through times of struggling with alcoholism through his life. And at that time, he was struggling with alcoholism due to a divorce that he and his then wife was going through. On top of that, there was a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes within the studio at Warner Brothers. Now, none of us truly know exactly what led to what. Was it the stuff that was going on at home in his personal life that kind of affected him, and just everything at the studio then kind of piled up on it, and he was just like, look, I don't want to deal with this stuff. I'm not going to direct the Batman. I'm done with Batman after this. Or was it the opposite? Was it the stuff at the studio was causing him to go down the path of alcoholism, and was that what led to him and his wife getting a divorce? We don't know. We don't know. We'd have to talk to Ben. We'd have to talk to Jennifer, but we don't know this stuff. But regardless of what it is, it was a terrible time for Ben Affleck that was going on during this time period. So we know it was bad, okay? We're not going to take anything away from that. It was bad. But that's kind of what he's talking about here. He's not talking about him working with Zack Snyder. He's not talking about that he hated putting on the suit and stuff like that. That stuff, we know. He's talked in the past as well about how he enjoyed, I think it was on Jimmy Kimmel, that he borrowed the suit the one time and went to one of his kids' birthday parties and things like that. Like, he enjoyed doing that kind of stuff, but there was just things going on in his life. And then all the meddling, the backstabbing, and he talks about that where it was misalignment of agendas, understandings, and expectations. Those things were because of the studio. The studio just, they couldn't come together in understanding what they were doing and how things were working. And that comes in the territory with this kind of stuff, where a studio has an IP, they want certain things done, but then you have creative minds who want to do another thing and they want certain things done. And if they can't align, if they can't get together and see an end goal that aligns with each other, then things aren't going to work out in the end. And we saw that with the DCEU. We saw that with Zack Snyder and what happened with Warner Brothers, and again with Walter Hamada, and again with The Rock even. I mean, we've seen this time and time again. It's difficult. It's difficult to see how things can play out and if things just don't align. So that's what he's talking about here. I mean, that's exactly what he's talking about. Now, a lot of people take what this article says and they took it as, well, he's talking about never coming back as Batman again. I don't take this as him saying that, because I do know of how much he respects Snyder. I do believe that he respects Snyder quite a bit. If Snyder was ever to say, hey, Affleck, I get a chance to do a Batman movie, and I want you as my Batman. I want you to suit up as Batman for me again. Or I get a chance to do this with Batman. I believe Affleck would say, absolutely, boss, I'll suit up for you as the Dark Knight. I do believe that. I think he would, because he respects Snyder. He and Snyder are friends. But I don't think it would be ever for a long period of time. I don't think it would ever be something that would be for multiple films. It would never be for anything that's a franchise type of role like it was originally going to be for, well, it wasn't even originally, because remember, he was supposed to die in Zack Snyder's vision. So when I sit there and take a look, there's a lot of people who are like, that means he's done. Snyderverse is never coming back. This really doesn't solidify that. I think more of what's happened with Zack Snyder, how he has technically moved on, has kind of solidified that the Snyderverse is done. This here is just really him talking about how he just doesn't want to come back and play in that sandbox at all. There's no reason for him to come and play in that sandbox at all. There just isn't any reason to, as of right now. I even take a look back and what he talked about when somebody asked him about working for DC Studios and the DCU, and he was like, no, I don't want to do any of that. This is kind of the reason why. He just doesn't want to deal with any of the semantics and all the ridiculousness that goes about trying to line up with what this person wants and things like that. If you notice, a lot of his movies are his vision. When he directs and writes a movie, it's what he wants to do. He doesn't really, like, the studio doesn't tell him what to do for the most part. I mean, and that's what he likes doing. So that's what he wants to do. It is what it is. Now, my post, I go, this is spot on. Affleck gets it, and it is really the voice of reason with things. It makes you think. Now, some people then go on here saying he might come back, Batman who had potential, yes. Things, I am to blame for not really explaining what my point of my post was here. And some other people commented and shared this and stuff like that. It was kind of ridiculous. My specific reason for this was when he said this. What happened was it started to skew too old for a big part of the audience. And he's talking about the Dark Knight and the larger DC universe being too adult. That is what I was talking about. He said, like even my own son at time was too scared to watch the movie. And so when I saw that, I was like, oh shit, we have a problem. Then I think that's when you had a filmmaker that wanted to continue down that road and a studio that wanted to recapture all the younger audience at cross purposes. Then you have two entities, two people really wanting to do something different, and that is a really bad recipe. That's it. That's what I'm saying is spot on. He says clearly, clear as day, what happened. The audience, and him being in the industry, him understanding the industry better than I, better than a lot of the other YouTubers, better than anybody else who sits there and tries to tell you that the Snyderverse and the DCU was a massive success and Warner Brothers just didn't like it because of this. No, this is Ben Affleck, who was part of the Snyderverse, who was sitting there, who saw everything going on. Part of it is telling you, no, guys, listen. Things were going to adult. It was going to adult. Even I, Ben Affleck, recognizes this. And even I sat back and said, whoa, maybe this isn't the right move. And because of that, he understood and he saw that there was the studio wanting to come in and try and tone it back. But Snyder wanted to push forward. That's not a knock on Snyder either. He's not knocking Snyder. I'm not saying that. But he sees that the studio wanted to tone it back, to bring it down a little bit so they could get the younger audience. They could get the larger general audience. That's the whole thing. And what's crazy is them showcasing this, them, GQ and Variety posting this little excerpt that Ben Affleck says highlights exactly what DC Studios is doing without stating DC Studios. And that's what I'm saying. He's spot on. Look, I loved what they were doing with the Snyderverse. I liked the more adult tone. I used to say all the time that we had Marvel that was the more family-friendly and even at times childish. And it would go a little darker at times, like Winter Soldier and stuff like that, but it was more family-friendly. And I liked that DC was more grown-up and more adult. But then I realized over time that, hey, if they wanted to make money, if they wanted to capture and really push forward this universe, they had to expand. They had to get more family-friendly. They could, just like Marvel, do the family-friendly stuff and have darker movies as well. And they tried to do that. They had their Shazam. They had their Aquaman that they tried to get more family-friendly with. But I think it was too far, too gone, and it was too late. I think now is the right time. They're going to try and start fresh. Start fresh with Superman and move forward in that direction. But Ben Affleck, somebody saying just that. Look, I know there's a lot of people out there. They're going to sit there and say, oh, this is a hit piece. People are attacking Ben Affleck, blah, 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 this and that. This isn't a hit piece. This isn't anything. This was Ben Affleck literally having a conversation. He answered questions as honestly and truthfully as he could, and they were spot on. There was nothing negative about Snyder. There was nothing negative about the Snyderverse. Nothing even negative about Warner Brothers. He was answering honestly and truthfully. And when you read it that way, you start to see, hey, dude was spot on. Let me know your thoughts, though. I'd love to hear what you have to say about this. What are your thoughts? Are you excited to see this new endeavor for the DCU? Do you think he's right? Do you think that that's what they needed to do? Do you think that they were too adult? And do you think that it's the right move to get away from that? Let me know. I want to know what you have to say. I know there's going to be some of you that are like, no, they should stay adult. They should stay super adult and be gory and blah and dark and gritty. And some of you are going to say, oh, no, they're doing the right thing. But I'd like to know what you have to say. Let me know in the comments. Hit that like button. Hit subscribe. It's so close to 2,000 subscribers. Hit that subscribe button. Come on. If you're not, hit that subscribe button. Right now. Do it right now. Do it right now. Now. All right, guys. Take it easy. I'll check you all out later.